Hey, welcome back to the Gilbertson Aero Factory. Today is Monday the 12th of January 2025. It's a little bit chilly out here. I'm going to try to be a big boy about it because I did grow up in Alaska after all. You can see that I have the left aileron mounted more or less. There's a lot of adjusting that has to happen, and that's what I'm going to focus on today. I did things a little bit out of order in terms of the attachment here. I didn't do anything wrong. I just mean that I went ahead and did the whole washer spacer stack over here because I wanted to get it figured out. But I'm going to pull that back out and instead use one of my, where are they? One of my retaining tools pins that I made forever ago for that purpose. And then we'll work on getting this adjusted properly, and that will be, that'll kind of be it for that, and then that will be set in place, and we'll do the same thing on the other wing. That probably is not going to happen today. One thing that I did want to say is if any of you pay any attention to the naming convention on these things, even though I'm working on the ailerons right now, this will not be like aileron 26 or something like that. From now on, everything's going to be wings. If you looked at the names of the videos, if it said aileron or flap, it meant I was building it or building the parts for that. Now we're building the wings again. So I think this is maybe wings 44, and that's probably what it's going to be most of the rest of the way out for the wings. Anyways. Let's build an airplane. Okay, this is a shorter one today. You're welcome. Let's see. I misspoke during that intro. I said that there was a lot of adjusting to do. Turns out there's not a lot of adjusting to do. The plans give you a dimension that you're kind of shooting for once the threaded rod ends are attached. I forget off the top of my head, I think it's like 29 or 27 5/8 inches from the center of the two bearings, rod end bearings. And so I kind of try to get it close. You can see that I have the tape measure layer in there on the bench, and I removed that hardware stack, put in the pin, and then went to work using a technique that I saw Tim use, and Tim probably saw somebody else use, which is instead of the plans early on in the wing build describe building a little, not a jig, I suppose, but there's a tooling hole in that rib that runs from the main spar to the rear spar, and there are two tooling holes in that rib that you are supposed to attach a board to, and then draw a reference line that basically runs through those two tooling holes, and then the board would extend and the line would extend out to the height, in this case, the height of the aileron, and that's where you want the trailing edge of the aileron to be perfectly in line with those tooling holes. So I'm doing what Tim did, which is to use a laser to shoot a line across those tooling holes, and it's way easier. It's a bit of fussing to get the laser perfectly lined up between the two tooling holes, but it took me forever, and by that I mean probably 7 minutes. So this work session, if you saw at the beginning, was a whole total of 0.6 of a minute, and most of that was head scratching. So I thought that there was going to be a fair amount of adjusting, but as I mentioned at the beginning of this voiceover, I did try to get the dimensions correct when I installed that push rod, and so the first time I shot the laser, it was almost dead nuts in position. So you'll see me here, I go back and I make an adjustment to the rod end bearing. So disconnect it and then rotate it, I think 180 degrees or 360 degrees, like one full turn, and reconnect it, and that moved it past my point, so I backed it up 1/2. So in other words, on the very first go, this thing was only 1/2 turn of that rod end from being dead perfect. So yeah, I think there we go. We got a picture here. You can kind of see, if you look at the bottom of that, you can see the bottom tooling hole is easy to see. The one on the upper end is a little bit more difficult to see. And then you can see where it intersects the trailing edge. So that was way less work than I thought. So basically after that, then I just ran down the jam nuts to lock those things in position. And now we move forward to Wednesday, which is today in the real world. And again, only 7/10 of an hour. Off camera, I flipped around the bolts in the attach brackets for the aileron that's sitting over there in the little cradle. But that was 5 minutes, maybe. It wasn't a big deal. What I'm doing right now is, I think, fussing with the, there's a little jig piece that you attach, that will lock the bell crank in what is the design neutral position. And I keep running around from one side of the wing to the other, making sure that because you use the same piece on both sides, you just flip it around and making sure that the orientation is correct and not doing anything weird. It does get a little bit brain twisty, flipping the wing cradle around, so the inboard end is now the outboard end, and now we're on the opposite wing. And yeah, anyways. And one more reminder, because you saw me there with my drill. With all of these powder coated parts, remember to ream out those holes that you're going to be putting bolts in, because they are not the same size they were before they were powder coated. So it's much easier to do that, and a better idea to do that before they're actually attached to the wing or whatever else you're putting them on. So this was somewhat similar. I'm doing a little metal work over there, fixing a couple of those retaining pins that I made to get them to fit a little bit better. That was a great idea. I honestly can't remember, although if I go back in my videos, I can probably find out when I made them, because I made two things. I made 6 of those pins, and I also made a tool for adjusting the rod end bearings themselves. So if they didn't turn really easily, I made a little tool that can slip over the top of them and turn them. I think it was probably on Joe's recommendation that I did it. So this one, you see, I just threw it up there and popped the pins in. No big deal. Setting up the laser. I mean, this 7/10 of an hour, a third of that was just me hand wringing over getting that laser perfectly intersecting those two tooling holes, but the result is the same. And by the same, I mean exactly the same. Again, I only had to turn that rod end bearing 1/2 of a turn to get it perfectly aligned, get the trailing edge perfectly aligned with that laser line and those two tooling holes. If you look really closely, and you might have seen me do it, but if you look really closely on the trailing edge itself, at the peak of it, there's a little bit of blue tape there. I saw Tim do that in his video, and it's pretty helpful to just put a little piece of blue tape folded around the top right there. It's easier to read where the laser is intersecting, especially I think if you are using that that darker color primer. It kind of will soak up the laser up there in that corner where it meets. Anyways, this was pretty simple. Thankfully, that's a win. So when we get back to it, we will do a little bit more in those bell cranks, because I don't like the way that the bushing fits right now. I think it could be smoother. That's it. See you next time.